In the 1980s, EPA designated a 200-mile stretch of the Hudson River as the nation's largest Superfund hazardous waste site. Superfund is the nation's environmental law that deals with the cleanup of toxic, hazardous contamination from historic pollution. The Hudson River is one of the largest Superfund sites in the country, and one of the most important because of the thousands and millions of people that are affected by potential exposure to Pcbs from fish in the Hudson River. Pcbs are a highly toxic chemical. They've been identified by EPA as a probable cause of cancer in humans, and they've also been linked to illnesses such as thyroid disease, immune disorders, reproductive disorders, low IQ, and other adverse health effects on humans. General Electric dumped 1.3 million pounds of Pcbs into the Hudson River from 1947 through the 1970s, when Pcbs were banned by Congress.
The fishing from Troy all the way up to here in Fort Edward, the health department has regulated, saying that you cannot keep the fish. You can catch them and you can release them, but you can't keep the fish, nor can you eat any of the fish that you have, due to the PCB contamination right now. One of the objectives of the dredging is to get those fish levels down to the point where you can start eating the fish again. In fact, that really is the main source of risk exposure that we have on the project, and that's what the project was designed to do, is reduce the levels in the fish.
NRDC has been involved since the 1970s in working towards this cleanup that's now underway. We've used all the tools in our toolbox, from litigation to citizen advocacy to hard science.
The EPA oversees the General Electric company, who is actually doing the dredging work in the river. So our role is to be there, inspect the work, make sure that it's going according to the plans and specifications, and that they're actually meeting the standards, engineering standards that were set for the project. GE's role is to actually implement the work itself, to do the project. They designed it, we reviewed and approved the design, and they now have their contractors actually doing the physical work in the field.
The law in the U.S. is polluter pays. That means GE made a mess and they're responsible to clean it up. But for decades, GE spent tens of billions of dollars on lawyers, lobbyists, scientists, PR people to convince the public, seeking to convince the public, that a cleanup would only make things worse.
GE tried to make the argument that you would get sufficient resuspension to make it, to negate some of the positive aspects of the work. But what we're finding is that we don't see that level of resuspension that becomes an issue. The second phase of the project, which is what we're in now, contains a lot of changes in the approach that we're taking, and we find the resuspension numbers are much lower than they were in the first phase, which was done in 2009.
Initially, GE argued that PCBs weren't harmful to people at all. Then GE argued that the river was cleaning itself. When the data clearly showed this wasn't true, GE shifted ground and argued that an attempt to clean up the river would only make things worse by spreading around the contamination. By bringing independent science to bear, NRDC was able to refute and show the errors of those assertions. NRDC was able to support, in an informed way, a strong, comprehensive cleanup, which ultimately the government has required in this case and is now underway.
As far as the dredging, what we do is we identify where the hot spots are. That's where the PCBs are the most concentrated. And the dredging contractor is told where to do that and what depth. He then removes that. We go back and we resample it and see if it is all gone. If it isn't, we go back one more time, and they're only allowed to do that twice. And from there, we backfill it if it's clean, or we put a cap, which basically just covers it and holds it in place so that it's not coming back into the environment. Once we're done with the dredging, the following season, we come back in the spring and do habitat replanting. What we do is we actually replant a portion of the area that was dredged so that becomes seed plants to expand that weed bed again that we removed during the dredging. The reason we put the plants back is to reestablish the ecosystem that was there before the dredging. I mean, this is the start of the food chain. The plants provide cover for the fish to spawn. They provide food stock for the fish and other aquatic animals. So it's important to make sure that we get the habitat reestablished, to give it a boost, if you will. It will come back on its own, but this way it comes back much quicker.
The start of phase 2 of the cleanup in 2011 marks the beginning of the end of a long saga. It brings us closer to the day when the Hudson River will be restored, when fish will be safe to eat, when communities along the river will be able to enjoy its bounty, will be able to enjoy recreation, commerce, in safety and health, without fear of poison and pollution from the legacy of PCBs. There's still a lot of hard work left to get the job done. So it's important to remember where we've been and the challenges that still lie ahead. Continued vigilance by EPA and by the public will be crucial to ensure that General Electric completes the job and completes it right.